sort of artistic identity and kind of takes on a lot of the East Coast stuff and anybody who's passing through. But there still is some, thank God, like some queerdom going on there. Yeah,
Yeah, Canberra does have some really amazing artists that work there. I think the thing is they're just finding their audience. I think that's the
right.
hardest thing. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the audience, the performers or the work that they put in.
Of course, yeah.
It's to do with the audience and the
Yeah.
people that live there. You know, middle-aged like public servants that are working in government. While some of them are queer, they're not as likely to participate in a club scene
They've
like
got
a city
something
full of
going on
young
tomorrow morning.
artistic people. Exactly. So
Yeah.
I always feel for those performers because they're making really great stuff in Canberra. I just couldn't stay there and participate in that. I love to go back and perform at things there, here and there, but it's not somewhere where I can really push the boundaries of nightlife
that
with what I love to do.
That totally makes sense. Like yeah, in the U.S., I guess the comparison that I could draw is like L.A., New York, and Chicago, especially for like queer art and everything, are those big pulls where people who live in cities like Denver or more like Midwestern areas find themselves like creating good art and putting out amazing drag, but it's like a lot of people don't pop off necessarily until they show up in these cities where there are cultural opportunities where everybody's up at 3 a.m. to watch you do your thing. So that's interesting how parallel it is. I also want to pivot and ask is just watching like your performance videos and everything, you have such a reverence of the icons, the divas of drag and of queer culture and everything. I would love if you would talk a little bit more about your favorite, like who is the diva for you? Like if you had to pick one out of our compendium, who's the one that represents you the greatest?
I'm going to give two answers.
Okay.
Number one, I think the biggest diva for me in terms of who I look to and I say that is like the complete package of what glamour and diva and everything represents to me is Judy Garland. And
Yes.
I look to her, I suppose less so about her work or her art or what she actually did, but in terms of what she represented in that era of Hollywood and the weird kind of parallels in her life to that of queer identity. You know,
Mm-hmm.
her struggles with how she was perceived, her struggles with relationships, her struggles with public image, as a performer, what she went through. Um, there's a lot of things that I think a queer person can look at the life of someone like Judy and be like, a lot of it's aspirational in a kind of not a way where you're like, oh, I want to live like her because her life was
Right.
fucked up, but you
Yes.
go, I see a little bit of myself in someone who's obviously felt this pain and she still created amazing, amazing things. So it's still possible. It's
Yeah.
possible to be this beauty and this glamour and everything while still going through this enormous pain. There's this performance of her doing Old Man River on the Judy Garland show, and
Mm.
it's on YouTube, and I watch it again and again and again. It's like the pain in her face and the performance she commands. It's like it sends shivers down my spine. She is
Yeah.
just someone to me who I think represents a lot of what a performer, like a performer to the core is.
Mm-hmm. It's a
So she's really
quality
powerful.
and it's a spirit that people like you said, you don't necessarily want to have the same history as Judy Garland, but there is a spirit that you see in her performances that it's like, how do you capture that again? Anybody. And I feel like Judy Garland in that way, like her legacy is sort of echoed. Like, I mean, the best way to put it is through like Star is Born. Like literally there are 3 versions of films that are like echoes of her, like her original on-screen story. And then I feel like when you pan out to other icons, like be it your Lady Gagas or your other like queer idols from the 20th century, they all sort of have these echoed stories of like of damage and abuse and everything, resulting in beautiful, in like totally distinguished performance quality that nobody else could do. I
Oh,
feel like she's
she's
the
an
blueprint.
archetype.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
the blueprint.
she said I'm going to come out here and I'm going to influence pop culture for the next century
Oh
and
yeah.
do so in not a way where she was trying to either. She was forced into a career by her managers from at the
Mm-hmm.
age of a child, you know, and she was pushed into this path and she just reacted and lived and performed naturally.
Yeah.
And all of this story and all of this cultural meaning that we still look at came out of her career.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, she's so interesting to me. And of course, the other one, which is hilariously connected, but is someone I relate to. We share the same birthday as Liza Minnelli.
Of course.
Um, so Liza is just such and I think looking at Judy and Liza as a connected package for me, it's just so interesting because I obviously see them as separate people, but in my mind, it's kind of like different manifestations of different eras of the same kind of thing. Like if you
Yeah.
look at Liza, you're like, this is what she has taken her mother's legacy and she's transported it into a new age of being a diva and a new age of being a star. Like if you watch movies with Judy in it and then movies with Liza in it, you can see the same ideas and the same concepts about
Yes.
femininity and glamour and culture and performance, but they're slightly adapted to the world that we're living in. So it's really interesting to see that kind of, I think, that kind of lineage of diva quality and performance.
Yeah, well, I mean, talk about inherited trauma. I mean, you have a mother and daughter that were just that became icons of their time truly through like enduring their lives rather than like living them. So yeah, I am so fascinated by that. Like the bitter sweetness of it all it's something we don't touch on as much. And I honestly I need to get into my Judy and Liza education. I definitely am a little bit behind as far as that goes. I like the Judy Star is Born is still on my list of things to watch. Did you enjoy the Judy movie this past year, the Renee Zellweger vehicle?
I think Renee did it. Yeah, I know. I think Renee did an amazing job. I think she really did deliver and she really put the work in. I think someone like Judy, it's so hard to create something that actually. I just kind of watched the movie and I kind of thought, why would you create this when you can just watch movies with Judy in it? You know what I mean?
There is something to be said about like some people are. It's so crazy because it's like we look at like Ariana Grande and everybody's saying like she is so young and early to be like making a documentary, and then I feel like there are people whose careers and aura are so immense that it's difficult to like create something like a biopic like that. To try and like hoist that onto a single actor is a little much even for Renee Zellweger, the acting talents of.
I think the thing I related to though watching it was that idea. There's a lot of scenes in the movie and a lot of things that happen where you kind of look at it and you realize how lonely the life of a performer is and how difficult it can be to be a performer. And I've had so many relationships and friendships in my life deteriorate because I've had to just push through regardless. And you know, when I've had huge gigs and weeks of performing and opportunities, I've had to say, no, this is my priority. I have to do this. And I've gone on stage sick. I've gone on stage having mental breakdowns. I think there's a scene in the movie where
tell me about it.
She's having like a full blown breakdown. She can't get on stage and she just walks on stage and then performs, you know? And I think that's like, that's something that all of us have had to do. But I think it's something that I definitely relate to a lot. And so I liked seeing that in the movie. I just, again, like we said, how can you reduce all of Judy's life, all of her influence and who she is as a person into a 1.5 hour movie?
Because that
made
vibe
for a consumable audience, you know, a mainstream audience.
Exactly. Because it's like if somebody really wanted to do Judy Garland justice, like you could go out and put a 6-part miniseries, make like go through all of the important details, but the fact of the matter is they wanted an Oscar worthy film, and so you end up with what you get, which was lovely. She won the award. She made a great speech. Was completely shit faced when she accepted it. But so what else? What more could you expect?
Exactly. And I always like you know. Because I suppose in our generation of performers, there may not be as much interest or knowledge in this older period of divas and people that have come before, you know, our Arianas and our Gagas and our Madonnas. And so I definitely enjoy when people come to me and they say, oh, I saw the Judy movie and she's actually really interesting and I understand why you do a lot of her songs now and do this. And I'm like, yeah, she was the original diva. Get with it. Get with the times.
Exactly. No, I have a similar thing where it's like my number one, like the diva I look up to, period, is Barbra Streisand.
Fab. Yeah.
Because it's just like its personality, its look, it's like, and then her aging into like a complete nightmare of a person like is real
Yeah.
is really fun to me. Like every part of the Barbara story is important. But it's like, no, I have had people, or I've had whole groups of drag friends who I like sat down to watch Funny Girl, and they were like, oh my god, we had no idea. And I'm like, do you not realize that a huge chunk of your musical culture like comes straight from this woman, or comes straight from like Judy Garland? It is interesting to see. It's interesting when you reveal the layers and you're like, oh, these idols, these pop icons are folded into every single layer of like our current pop music and everything. Like even just looking at Star is Born, like that prompted me to go back and watch Barbara Streisand's Star is Born and to learn a little bit more about like Judy Garland and everything. And so, yeah, you can't, especially with drag, I feel like you can't take on a career in like, or take on a career full on without realizing that it's like these women, they raised us, they created all of the music that we're resting on today.
Well, a lot of people do, and that's to their own detriment, because I have to see a lot of full-time working drag queens who I go up to and try to have a conversation about anything deeper than the latest season of Drag Race, and they look like they've swallowed a lemon.
That is,
I tell you what, they
it's
have
a disease.
No fucking clue. They really don't, and they're like, I can tell you every lip sync song on season 9, and I'm like, yeah, but can you tell me one movie with Audrey Hepburn in it? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I totally identify with that. It's pretty appalling, like the way that, some people, the way that people are able to advance in something like drag, which is so much about pop culture. Like, it's about knowing your references and everything, and who exactly are, basically their knowledge begins and ends with Drag Race. And it's, I don't know quite how it works, because it's like I don't feel like I would even be motivated to perform or do drag in the way that I do without like looking at the references of these women and taking it on.
I think it's because drag is so quick to order these days. You know, you can go on AliExpress or Boohoo.com and you can say, I want this look head to toe, and you can order it. It comes, you learn the words to your Dua Lipa song, you get on stage, you do it, and people go, well, she looks
Don't come for Dua Lipa, not...
I'm coming for the queens who think that she's the height of modern culture.
People are saying she's the new Judy. No. I
need to tap out of that.
I already feel sick. I apologize. But it's true.
And people look at them, and especially because drag has become so mainstreamed, it's so annoying sometimes, because I put in so much work into my drag, and I'm always drawing references. And when I work with my friends who design stuff, when I make things myself, we look at references and we say, we want to make something to reference this. This is a concept. We're doing things so it's a head-to-toe look that references fashion or art or culture. And then a queen will come out in a rhinestone bodysuit, and a straight mainstream audience, who now are the people who are coming to the clubs, especially in Australia, will look at that performer and me, and they say, we are basically on the same level. You both look good. And it's like, yeah, we both look good, but I'm doing art. They're a social climber. They're someone that's doing this to be popular and to get a buck here and there, but they're not doing it because they want to cultivate culture or community. They're doing it just because they want to be on stage.
I just first of all have to say to all of my American listeners out there, of the 2 people who have subscribed already, this is how we should be talking about our like drag culture. Like, I really think it's like it is Australian gall that you have come out and just like said all of the things that you have just said, because I truly think like I've had this discussion a million times, like with the people in my own scene and from throughout the United States, and I feel like there is this rub where people are like, no, but those girls, like, they deserve the best in the same slots, and they're working just as hard. Like, there is an inability to admit that it's like there has genuinely been a cheapening of drag culture in many ways. And I think it's, like you said, it's really crazy how a whole new paradigm has popped up, that, like, because there are viewers of our drag shows, the audience is conditioned for Drag Race and maybe is not as steeped in all of those references, that the girl up there in a rhinestone bodysuit performing Ariana Grande, like, that is their reference. That to them is like, they're looking at the stage and they're like, that is my pop culture in the year of 2020. And so it is strange how Drag Race has created a whole new pop culture that's like a little bit more shallow, laid on top of drag culture.
It's so interesting to me because it's kind of like a weird thing to